Roxo Media House. Frogs Today presents part 2 of our TCU Hall of Fame special, featuring the latest inductees into the TCU Hall of Fame. On today's edition, you'll hear from Jake Arrieta.
I can't wait for that night. I can't wait for that weekend to stand up there and to say a few words.
Jackson Langat.
TCU, this is the school that got me an opportunity to come and study in America.
Jack Hesselbrock.
Well, the old joke is, you graduate last in medical school would argue you're a doctor.
And Jake Kirkpatrick.
They saw something that I didn't even see myself, so.
And now from the TCU Athletics Hall of Fame, the voice of the Horned Frogs, Brian Estridge.
Welcome to Schollmeyer Arena. It's the site here of the TCU Hall of Fame. I'm Brian Estridge, and this is episode 2 of our Hall of Fame specials from Frogs Today. We've got a great night lined up for you. We're 4 down, 4 to go. 8 new members of the Hall of Fame here, whose portraits will soon be on this wall. You know, this Hall of Fame is full of some great baseball players throughout the years here at TCU. Terrific pitcher John Grace. Think about former Atlanta Brave, Congressman Roger Williams, Glenn Monroe, who went on to an amazing business career. Jeff Newman, I can go down the list, some greats. But were any as good on the field as our first guest tonight? If you would, please welcome our conversation with one Jake Arrieta.
Jake, I'm going to start this conversation with a pronouncement that you are the greatest baseball player in TCU history. What's your reaction to that?
It's surprising. I don't know if I can confirm or deny that. It's when things like this come up, and I've been asked things like, do you think that your number should be retired in Chicago? You know, it's just humbling to even be asked that question. So I don't really know how to answer that question. I really don't. Again, humbled to even have it brought up. So I guess I'd have to look at all, the former players and, analyze some stats. But, I know I had a couple good years. I can definitely say that.
Well, when you think about the travel to get to TCU, you start at Plano East. You originally signed with Oklahoma State, is that right? And then ended up at Weatherford. Am I right on this?
Yeah. So I was trying to navigate that process to the best of my ability with my family and with some advisors. I knew that I was going to have an opportunity to play at the next level, whether that was college at a Division I level, junior college level, or potentially signing with a Major League Baseball team and entering the farm system. And my path was unordinary. I signed with Oklahoma State. I went to orientation, and my wife, Brittany, actually, was going to go to Oklahoma State as well. We were both very excited about that. And then the draft kind of changed things. I ended up not signing with the Reds in 2004. I thought that the best option for me would be to go to a junior college, develop a little bit further for a season, and then go from there. So went to Weatherford, got a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, still didn't know how to pitch very well. Was throwing really hard, had a usable changeup, and had a nice curveball that I couldn't throw for strikes. After that year, I was drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers, and I believe it was the 26th round. And they made an offer that was fairly difficult for me to turn down. I remember having the guy that drafted me in my kitchen with my mom and dad, and we're, figuring out how we're going to say no to that amount of money. We ultimately did. I went to the Texas Collegiate League, where just by sheer luck, I was seen by Jim Schlossnagle, after a really nice outing. He was there to actually see one of our closers pitch that game. He wasn't even there to watch me throw. And I believe I ended up throwing a shutout. Schlossnagle didn't get to see that arm throw at the end of the game. And it was like a movie moment. He basically offered me a scholarship, on the spot. I was on one side of the chain link fence. He was on the other. And I was in disbelief. But what he said to me was that, our Friday night guy, Lance Broadway, just walked off campus, and we're looking for a guy to come in and fill that spot. And I'm like, he wants me to be that guy. It's amazing how things changed and how quickly things developed. But fortunately, I was able to get that done. I signed my letter of intent and wore that beautiful uniform for 2 years.
The backside of that story that a lot of folks don't know is that there had to be a trade worked. It was almost like a straight-up National League trade, wasn't it, where you had to get a waiver from Oklahoma State to go to TCU. TCU had a player that Oklahoma State wanted, and Shelby Ford, who was leaving TCU, ended up having a decent career. And the two teams sort of had to swap waivers, right, in order for you to land in Fort Worth.
And then it's surprising to me that had to happen because, because I went to Weatherford, and I was uncertain, and I didn't even know about all the legalities and the things that had to happen in order for me to get on campus. But yeah, we were able to get it done. Thankfully, because I know that there's times, and there have been things in the past where players haven't been able to get to a certain campus because of certain restrictions. So fortunately enough, we were able to get that done, and my TCU career started.
That sophomore year, Jake, was magical. Lead us through that, and when you started realizing, man, I've got something here, and we've got something here at TCU.
Well, I'll be honest. I didn't necessarily know how far I was able to take it. I knew I was very confident in my abilities. I knew that when I walked onto campus and we started going through our period, our progression leading up to the season, I knew that I was going to have an opportunity to be, one of the starters. And, Slosh told me, he wanted me to come in and be the Friday night guy. And I'm like, that would be great. But we had some really nice arms. I didn't initially believe that was going to happen. But I was able to kind of fine tune things and dial things in fairly quickly. And it became fairly evident and obvious that I was going to be that guy. And once I realized that, okay, I have the ability to do this. Let's see how far we can take this. That was my only goal, was to be as good as possible for my team every single time I took the mound. And I know there were times where I think we were in Norman playing OU on a Tuesday, and I actually came out of the pen, I believe, one time. We ended up losing the game, I think, in extra innings. One of my favorite games in my career. We lost that game, but just the way it transpired and how it brought us close together as a team after that loss was truly amazing. And I learned how to be not only a great player at TCU, but a great teammate. And that's part of the evolution. That's part of the maturation process. And I don't think it would have happened the way it did. And I don't think I would be the guy that I am if I weren't to go to TCU. And I tell people this all the time. You're able to learn how to be a good teammate if you go from high school to the minor leagues and then progress to the big leagues. That is possible. But I don't think that you're able to learn that in the same way as you would if if you were to go to a 4-year university and play for an opportunity to go to a regional, super regional, and then on to the College World Series. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do that during my time at TCU, but I learned how to be a team player, and what that meant to be as good of a teammate as you possibly can. And I benefited over the course of my career in the minor leagues and in the big leagues because of that at TCU.
You started stacking up accolades too. You were Mountain West Conference Pitcher of the Year that year. Then your junior year, you helped lead the USA to the gold down in Cuba with Schlossnagel as your coach, and that had to be an amazing experience. You get drafted 5th round by the Orioles, and thanks to your play and Scotty Boras, you set a record for what you signed for. I mean, things were starting to stack up for you at that point. And then was there, once you got to professional baseball, would you say that things slowed down for a bit for you?
Well, they continue to escalate very quickly throughout the minor leagues. I jumped the ranks, on a pretty escalated scale. So my first year in the minor leagues, I signed late. I went to the fall league without any minor league experience that year. Matt Wieters and I went to our extended season team, the Aberdeen Ironbirds, and we traveled with them for about 2-3 weeks at the end of the season. The organization wanted to acclimate us to the travel and being, with a minor league team, but we didn't play. We just, we threw bullpens and we got to know the guys on the team, and that was a very, very fun experience. So then after that, I went to the fall league, played for the Phoenix Desert Dogs. We ended up winning the fall league, which is really cool to do. Reminded me of my experience at TCU. Just, it is the fall league, but everybody wanted to win. We had a really, really nice team. So I threw 16 innings out of the bullpen. I didn't start any games. They wanted to monitor my innings, but I threw 16 scoreless. So, I was already showing myself that, hey, like these are the best prospects in Major League Baseball, or at least a big group of them. And I just threw 16 scoreless in the pen. So my confidence has always been there, but it just kind of continued to build and build. And then I went to Frederick, High A, my first full season. I pitched all the way up until July. I went to the Futures game. I threw an inning at the Futures game in Old Yankee Stadium. Fortunately, I was able to toe that mound before they tore it down. I still can't believe they did that. But I got to throw in Old Yankee Stadium, and then I was selected to the national team, and I got to go play in Cuba.
Yep.
For that, which was sorry. That was with Slosh in 06. Then in 2008. We went to Beijing for the Olympics, which we won. We won a bronze medal. We didn't go home empty-handed, fortunately. We played some amazing teams. The first game, we had Strasburg throw, and I think he gave up 4 or 5 runs to Cuba, and this is when he was throwing 102 miles an hour. And we were just amazed with the ability of this Cuban team to hit the way they did. So, first full season, I get to go to the Futures game. I get to play in the Olympics. I go to Beijing, and we were there for like 3 weeks or so. Then 2009, I come out. I start in AA. I was there for, I believe, a month, maybe a month and a half, 2 months. And I had like a 1.2 ERA. I was pitching very, very well. I hit my first sign of adversity in the minor leagues that season in AAA. Right. I think I had, a mid 3, maybe a high 3, which isn't bad by really anybody's standards. But for mine, I expected to go there and just dominate right away. But once I got to AAA in 2009, I'm pitching against major league players that are either rehabbing or, there's guys that are up and down. And it was an awakening for me. I showed some adversity. I was able to overcome some of it. Mentally and physically. And then in 2010, I restarted the season in AAA. Was there until right around the second week of June, and then made my debut June 10th of 2010. But you're right. There was a lot of adversity. There was a lot of adjusting that needed to take place. I had a decent rookie year. The ERA was slightly elevated. And then in 2011, I believe I won 10 games, but it was just, I would throw a good game. I would have 2 bad games. I would have 2 good ones and then 3 bad ones. So I wasn't able to find that consistency that I was looking for. And not only that I was looking for, that the organization was looking for. So then I bounced around a little bit. I went up and down. On that, on that kind of, that bus back and forth. And that was a difficult thing for me to handle mentally for a while. But I finally got to a point where I realized that whether I'm pitching in the big leagues or in AAA, the only thing I can control is the way that I approach each outing. And let's go out there and let's try and fight and compete to the best of our ability. And if we do that, we can deal with the results. So
then 2015 comes, and the world knows about Jake Arrieta. The world found out about him. You get to 15 wins faster than anybody. Hit the Dodgers. Everybody knew about that. You win the Cy Young, and then I'm thinking to myself, man, he just had a great year. How do you top that? And then you find a way in 2016 with the Cubs and the World Series. Condense those 2 for me. What was that run like, man, those 2 years?
Well, you know what? It really started for me in 2014. It was kind of my coming out party. So to finish 2013, I made a couple starts after the trade in Des Moines, Iowa for the AAA team there with the Cubs. I came up at the end of the year. I made, a handful of starts. I had a mid-3, so I was pitching pretty well. I was starting to get that confidence back that I had at TCU and that I had in the minor leagues. 2014, I kind of bust on the scene. Like, people knew me from being a big prospect and being with the Orioles. And I had a nice year. I think I finished with a 2.5. I had some Cy Young votes. I think I was in the top 10 in Cy Young. Maybe would have been a little bit higher if I had done it another year previous. But then you're right. In 2015, I was laser focused, and I knew I was back to where I was in 2006 at TCU. That's the mindset that I was in. And now I felt like, okay, I gotta show everybody once again who Jake Arrieta is and what I'm capable of. And having that confidence, it doesn't guarantee success like the way that I experienced it in 2015 or 16, but it definitely helps. So, and my only goal was to go out there and do everything I could to be our ace, to be a stopper. If we, had a stretch of 3 or 4 games where we lost and it was my chance to take the ball and toe the slab, there was no way I was going to allow this team to lose another game. And, that run, it was a dream. It was almost like things were just, you just hit play and things just happened and things just unfolded like you envisioned in your mind. And there were times where I was, kind of in disbelief, but not that I didn't think that I was capable of it. It was just, friends and family and teammates and competitors. Everyone would come up to me and be like, man, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing this? And I didn't really have a great answer for him. I was just, my routine was locked in. My bullpens it was like a video game. And that's kind of how the games were. It started with preparation and confidence, and the results just somehow were what they were. And it's hard for me to put into words. It really is.
Folks have Jake Arrieta memories that will last a lifetime. Many of them, we'll talk about the Cy Young or the no-hitter against the Dodgers. Many of them, they're going to remember you at the plate with the 3-run home run, the 2 wins in the World Series for the Cubs. And then you have people who walk up to you and they know Jake Arrieta from the body issue of ESPN, the magazine. What's that like?
Yeah. I get a lot of questions about that. They ask if, were you fully nude, and was it difficult to do that? And the answer to both of those was yes. I didn't know there was going to be, 30 or 40 people around. Photographer, there's 4 different camera angles. But, they made you feel really comfortable. It was a cool experience. And my wife was the one that said, look, if you have the opportunity to do this, you got to do it. So I couldn't turn it down. Looking back and seeing, there's just a really cool shot. I'm throwing off of a mound in the middle of the desert somewhere barefoot. And I'm at full extension. Obviously you can't see anything, thankfully. But the glove is tucked, the right leg is up in the air, and it's just, we've got it on a big poster board, and it's just a very, very cool picture. And, my son loves it. My family and friends love it. So, tough to do at first, but like I said, everybody made you feel very comfortable. And it's one of those memories that, my kids can look back on, I can look back on in 20, 30 years and be grateful that I was able to be a part of something like that.
Jake, you had an amazing career in baseball, as we said at the top of this, the greatest baseball player in the history of TCU. You've gone on to a terrific career in the podcasting world. You've been great at that, tremendous following. But I got to ask you, how humbling was it when you received the call that you were in the TCU Hall of Fame? What did that feel like?
Well, it's not something that I ever even thought about. And I know that might sound crazy, but I don't think I didn't have the longevity and quite pristine enough stats to get into the MLB Hall of Fame. I had a nice career, but to get that phone call, it just kind of confirms, certain things I was able to do in my career, and to be recognized and acknowledged by such a prestigious university. And it's hard to put into words exactly how humbling, but, TCU's been around for a long, long time, and there have been some incredible players, come through there and do amazing things, before me and after me. And it's been just amazing to watch, continue to watch these young players grow into amazing men and competitors, and then move on to the major leagues and do great things. So I just think it's most special for my family. And obviously for me, but just to have that conversation with my kids and to see the excitement and the enjoyment on their face, does everything for me. And I can't wait for that night. I can't wait for that weekend, to stand up there and to say a few words, and just to thank everybody that has followed me along the way and been a part of my career, not only at TCU, but all the way up into the end. Truly special. It really is, Brian.
Jake Arrieta, one of the building blocks to what has been an amazing run for TCU baseball over the last couple of decades. Up next, he comes from Kenya. Now he serves our country.
And it was such an honor, man, to be named the Hall of Fame. I know we had great athletes out there.
Jackson Langat, what a smile he has. And he graces us with his presence. Next on Frogs Today's Hall of Fame Special.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Welcome back into Schollmeyer Arena here to the TCU Hall of Fame for our Hall of Fame special on Frogs today. Our next guest, well, he traveled 8,750 miles from Nairobi, Kenya to Fort Worth, Texas. And what an impact he made. It's Jackson Langat.
Jackson Langat, it is great to see your face again, man. I thank you for joining us from Colorado. Let's start with this. What did it feel like when you got that phone call that said, "Hey, you're going to be in the TCU Athletics Hall of Fame, the Letterman's Hall of Fame"?
Oh man, it's such an honor, man. I can't compare with anything because TCU, this is a school that got me an opportunity to come and study in America. I had an opportunity, I had a good time there, and I wish I could come back again. It's only that I joined the military. Now I'm here. But overall, I have a lot of good experience from Fort Worth, TCU area. I have good people. Every time I come there, I feel fresh. And it was such an honor, man, to be named the Hall of Fame. I know we had good athletes, great athletes out there, but to be selected, that's a big deal.
Jackson, I can remember when you were on campus, you were kind of a campus favorite. Everyone knew you. They knew the big smile. They loved seeing Jackson on campus. Do you remember those days with fondness?
Oh man, every day. Like let me tell you, every time I visit, like I was there last week, 2 weeks ago, and there's no way, no day I come to Fort Worth without visiting the campus. I still have a lot of friends, the professors in the TCU. I always go to visit them. So the good thing about TCU was that the school was very well. It was very well represented, very well rounded. The culture was great. The the academics, the teachers, the students, they're all good people. That's why it got me that opportunity. Like every time I made a lot of friends there, and I cannot stop. Like I was telling the other coach the other day, the outgoing coach, that if the NCAA could reverse the decision of recruiting me again, I will choose TCU and change the rules for the NCAA, and I come back.
I love it. Tell me this now. How was that transition from Nairobi, Kenya to Fort Worth, Texas? What was that like, and what helped you get through it?
In fact, the good thing about the TCU was that they have the international admission. There's a culture. There's the group, especially the admission office. There's a man called John Singleton. This is a guy. He tried to make international students feel comfortable. They have like a lot of association, a lot of meetings, get together thing in the weekends, just to make you feel comfortable at home, because it was hard, especially coming to the food, transitioning from the African food and Nairobi food or whatever to American food. It was tough. So there's that culture where they try to make sure everybody assimilated properly, and then make you feel like despite the fact that this is not home, but the people there are still friendly. So the most important thing was TCU made it easier for us to adapt, to assimilate easier, because there was a lot of friends also from South America, Europe, and we still and then they had a connection that one you cannot compare with anything else. It was a good place.
Is there a favorite American food that you've adopted now as one of your favorites?
Yeah, the first time I used to hate pizza. So from day one, John used to really buy pizza, and I was like, "What is going on with this food, man? I don't like this food." But I end up eating it because I didn't have any option, and now I love pizza, especially barbecue chicken, something like that. Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Jackson, you think about it, 7-time All-American. I mean, that's almost unheard of. Did that register with you, and did it register with your friends and family back home when you told them, "Hey, I'm a 7-time All-American"?
Man, in fact, the way the numbers are being run here is quite really fascinating, because you guys, people especially in America, they really care about the performance of what you do. Because for some of us, we didn't even know what we were doing. We didn't know that this was counting. Like for example, because the good thing about it though, the coaching, the kind of like the teammates was really making it easier for me, because it was actually and the facilities also. TCU had I cannot compare TCU with other schools, because every time I feel I can walk in the stadium and I see how the changes, the people, and I still know that, even though I don't know them mostly, they still really realize, oh, I think I know this guy, and I try to click it up. So I always come to the athletic department there, and somebody, coach, there's a lot of changes in coaching and everything, but I've always found somebody who knows me. Like, yeah, man, I know you. I was like, yeah, I know you too.
Yep.
the most important thing is the environment the school created, the leadership of the athletic department and all those kind of things. So this was also making it easier for us to really perform without even pressure. You get you go to a conference, you travel to the meets. By the time you got back, there's no stress. That's why environment was great. That's why it led us to do that, to perform at that level. Yeah, but at the end of the day, I give credits to the leadership of the athletic department.
Jackson, you have stayed here in the United States since your time at TCU, and then your running career was over with. Let folks know what you're doing right now, because I'm fascinated by this. I love this commitment from you. Yeah, in fact, I've lived here longer. Like, I feel like I just came from Kenya the other day, because I can exhaust it. I can feel I can get bored staying here. So the most important thing is, so after TCU, when I graduated from TCU 2007, and I left and I joined the U.S. Army, because there was a program that was enabling us athletes, not athletes, even international students to join. So I joined the military. I did 4 years in the Army. I travel. Now I did, after 4 years, I just choose to really exit the Army, and I joined, and then there was another opportunity again for the Air Force. So I joined the Air Force, and time is going, man. I didn't even thought I was going to stay this long. I thought I was just like, oh man, let me just join and see what they can do. And then every day I did, so the culture also, it made it possible. Like the Air Force was also and there's that program, the Space Force, that the former President Trump created it. And I was like, it was really interesting too. So I was like, you know what, let me try again. So every day you keep trying things. And now I'm in a 11th year now in this Air Force, Space Force. So it's cool. We operate. We did space stuff. A lot of things are very classified, but it's a feeling that you cannot compare with anything. So even when I call my folks in Kenya, I say, hey man, guess what I'm doing? I'm working on space. I'm doing space stuff, and they're like, wow, that is the coolest thing. So it is it's an honor, man. It started from when I came to TCU up to now, and I still really appreciate giving all credits to, the leadership, the American welcoming us. That is one of those things that I cannot forget. I cannot stop and think about, because sometimes I felt like it was a dream, You wake up in the morning, you realize, where am I, because I thought everything was a dream. I'm dreaming, but it's reality, It's true. It's true. So that's why I'm loving it. It's such an honor, and I really thank God for all these things. Jackson, we're super proud of you. Congratulations. Army, Air Force, Space Force. You're a good American, man. Thank you very much for joining us here today. I appreciate that. Thank you, and I'll say hi to everyone over there. I look forward joining you guys in September, I think. Yeah, September. Thank you very much.
Jackson Langat, still popular here in Fort Worth when he shows back up, and now serving our country in the Space Force. Thank you, Jackson, for being here. Up next, his name is Jack Hesselbrock, an amazing administrator over the years who left an impact in more than one way.
Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Richard's Rainwater. Richard's Rainwater is 100% rain, refreshing, renewable, and the only ingredient we use in our water. Why rain? Because everyone deserves access to clean water, and rain is a 100% renewable resource available everywhere. Drink the rain. Save the planet. Shop now at richardsrainwater.com.
Our Frogs Today Hall of Fame special continues here at Schollmeyer Arena. I'm Brian Estridge. Thanks for joining us. Up next is an administrator with 30-plus years on the books here at TCU. He was a proven lieutenant who could have been the admiral.
Well, Jack Hesselbrock is a familiar face to both student athletes and fans and alums for many years. Jack, good to see you, my man.
Good to see you, Brian.
I haven't seen you in a while. Give me a handshake there, buddy.
Certainly.
All right, I wanted to just spend some time on, well, let's start with this. I mean, when they called you up and said, hey, you're going to the TCU Hall of Fame. Now, you told me you were a heck of an athlete in Cleveland back in the day.
Well, solid.
Yes.
Let's just say solid.
But now you're going in the Letterman's Hall of Fame at TCU.
Right.
What did that mean to you?
Well, the old joke is, you graduate last in medical school. What are you? You're a doctor.
You're right.
Well, you graduate last in the Letterman's Hall of Fame. You're still in the Hall of Fame.
Right,
So
right.
It meant the world to me because, one, the history there.
Yeah.
Being that I went to school there, got my master's there, and then had really my adult life there.
Yeah.
I think probably the thing that really hit me the most was the reason I was going in. I mean, obviously it wasn't athletic ability or anything like that, but it was because of a lot of young men and young women from the time I started as an employee to through retirement that thought I was worthy.
Yeah. Academic counselor for years.
Yes.
For years as an academic counselor, and then later as an administrator. But you never, the one thing I loved about you, Jack, is you always, even as executive associate or whatever that title was at the time, chief deputy, whatever, you still knew all the student athletes. And a lot of times those administrators lock themselves up.
Right.
And they don't get out. But you knew all of them still.
Well, and I made a point to it. That was the dessert of the meal. In fact, every time we would have a new coach come in, I would get with them one-on-one and say, do you care if I come by the locker room? Do you care if I'm one-on-one with your men and women?
Yeah.
And fortunately, all of them liked that. And I said, I'm with you, win, lose, or tie.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and you were. And that's, I mean, you were a frog through and through, are a frog through and through. And I know this story. I know multiple stories. I'm not sure everyone knows that you had chances to leave.
There were a couple of 3 times.
Yeah.
If I would have pursued it,
right.
I didn't really push it.
The calls were made, and you could have left, but you decided not to.
Right.
Why?
I operated very well at TCU. I mean, it's kind of like an athlete. You work in somebody's system.
Yeah.
It works well. Well, I knew all the strings and the levers and the contacts at TCU to make happen what we needed to make happen.
Yeah. Think about how that department changed during your tenure. From when you started as an academic counselor to when you left
right
in the new facility and all that it was. Did you ever envision all of that happening? No. And I'm going to say under your watch because you were part of those decisions.
No, you couldn't imagine it. I mean, from the very first day as an academic advisor, there was myself and an administrative assistant.
Yeah.
And we were in a kind of the back part of the ticket office.
Right.
I mean, we had no windows. We opened up into the Coliseum, and that's where all the kiddos came. And then I really thought it was a big-time deal when they built Moncrief Hall.
Right.
And they put the academic office in there. And, of course, that meant that she had her own office, I had my own office, and some filing cabinets.
Yeah.
But it was right there where all the athletes were. At that time, it was an athletic-based dorm.
Yeah.
And so they would come by, 8 to 5
Constantly.
later. Yeah, it was really a home over there.
Yeah. What was the trigger point for TCU? Obviously, the Southwest Conference breaks up. What was the trigger point for you to feel momentum again at TCU?
Ooh, probably when we hired Dennis Franchione. And that first year, and we go up to Iowa State and win that game. Fake punt by little Huffman.
Exactly.
Or actually older Huffman.
Sage Rosenfels was a quarterback for,
That's right.
for Iowa State at the time. Yeah.
And getting that bowl bid so late, I mean, you remember we had packed our equipment away and we were 100% into basketball.
Yep.
And then we get the word, hey, we're going to go to the Sun Bowl and play USC.
Yeah.
So that probably, and then going out there and winning it was a cherry on top, But that point you're saying, hey, this is getting back to where we wanted it. And at that time we had Billy Tubbs and basketball was rolling.
Yeah.
So, you had your 2 major sports that were on an upswing.
I remember being around you when TCU got in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that being an emotional day for you. Why
Well,
was that?
Why is that? Well, I happened to be in my office the day Chancellor Tucker came down to see Mr. Windigger, who was the AD at the time, and he said, the conference is broken up and we're not part of it. And you're going, what do you mean we're not part of it? Right. We've always been part of it. And, you know, to have been raised very close to TCU, having two older siblings go there, I mean, it was always, you know, Baylor, TCU, Rice, Texas, the Southwest Conference. And, you know, you just, when Arkansas left, that was a big blow. You know, it was like, oh, they can't leave. They're part of the SWC. But then when that happened, basically it said, you're not wanted.
Yeah.
And we were relegated, you know, to a conference that was non-regional and obviously very far away.
So it's interesting because when we kind of look back and think about the conference changes, one of the analogies you use is that you had to be wanted again, and you just said we weren't wanted in the Southwest Conference,
right.
But you had to be dateable.
Yes.
And when we kind of you fell into the whack because you had to go somewhere.
Had to go somewhere.
So you fall in the whack. Well, then when you finally leave the whack to go to, if you remember, to Conference USA,
right?
It kind of felt like we were dateable again, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
And that was all. And I'm not so sure we put enough stock in that move because it proved to other people that, hey, they're dateable.
Sure.
And then you get the Mountain West opportunity. Then you get the Big East for a cup of coffee. You still got the Big East T-shirt?
I still have a Big East T-shirt.
and then the Big 12. And you was like, oh, I remember, I think it may have been you or who said it at the time. We're back home.
Exactly. I mean, there was a lot of things that went along with that too. I mean, you know, when you're from TCU and the school down in Waco is included,
right?
That was a gut punch.
Yeah.
And you know, because at the time you looked at the series, you know, we were competing very well against Baylor.
Yeah.
Coach Sullivan had beaten them 3 times. Of course, Billy was just rolling people down in basketball. And so you're kind of going, you know, Waco, DFW, TCU, Baylor, why them and not us? And so it was a gut punch.
You, I'm going to use this as a compliment. You were a hell of a lieutenant. Did you ever want to be admiral?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You tried?
Yes.
A couple times?
A couple times.
How bad did that hurt?
Initially, the first time when Mr. Hyman left and Dr. Morrison was hired, that search, that was a kind of a stunner.
Yeah.
Because
I think that stunned everybody internally too. I think we all thought, Jack's gonna get this.
Yeah. I met with the Chancellor Bashini, and I asked that. I said, you know, what's wrong with me? You know, I mean, what am I doing wrong? And when he explained what the vision was of the department from an external, you know, marketing, conferences, I was a very good internal guy. I was a nuts and bolts guy.
Yeah, no question. Yeah.
And that you know, meeting Danny, I knew. I said, you know, this is a different personality. This is a different individual.
Had been a commissioner, so he knew the commissioners.
Been a commissioner.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful with alumni.
Yeah.
Conference commissioners. And then, of course, when Danny left, you know, I put my toe in the water, and when I heard who was the leader, once again, I heard from the top administration.
Right.
I said, well, that's a slam dunk. I mean, that is best for TCU.
Right.
To hire Chris Del Conte.
Right.
And I think it really was for Danny. I mean, I hate to admit that.
Yeah.
I'm not putting myself down.
No.
But at that time, you know, Eric was a nuts and bolts guy. Of course, Frank Windigger was. That's who I cut my teeth on, really.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it hurt, but the way those two, well, in fact, all three of them, the way they treated me was outstanding.
I was going to say, there's nothing wrong with being a really, really good lieutenant.
No, there wasn't. And like I said, I'm not going to say the word interfere because, it was their show.
Yeah.
But they really let me operate the way that I had for many years.
The football schedule was Jack's. That was Jack. Well, that's what we used to do. Jack's football schedule.
Jack's football schedule.
Exactly. Those were good days. Real quick, and I know we're running out of time here. Favorite players over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Is that hard to narrow down? Were there people who stand out to you?
Oh, yes, there were. I mean, there's so many, but I think, you go back and, you look at, obviously, LaDainian, to watch him and to see where his career took him, with the Chargers and later the Jets. That was amazing. Another one to me that always just fascinated me was the two Huffmans.
Yes.
Royce and Chad.
Yeah.
Very unflappable,
Yep.
ice in the veins.
Right.
In fact, one of my best stories with the Huffmans, but actually it was with Royce, is we had played Texas at home in baseball, and then we went over to the ballpark in Arlington, the second stadium.
Right.
And, I rode over with them and was sitting down in the dugout trying to stay out of the way. And Royce sat down and he's looking at the lineup and he says, this is going to work out just right. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm going to be able to drive in the winning run, beat these guys. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, you're in a major league ballpark. He was an underclassman. You've got the Texas Longhorns in town, and this young man is counting the lineup down to where he thinks he's going to get up and win. We did win the ball game. Royce didn't win it, but he contributed.
Yeah.
But that just their coolness, and you go back to some of the ladies. Watching Sandora.
Oh yeah.
I went to Connecticut with them when they were in NCAA's, and one of the funnest times I ever had was getting up at halftime and going and getting a hot dog because we were leading Connecticut in Storrs, Connecticut.
It was a pretty good feeling.
Pretty good feeling.
I think you liked the current basketball coach a little bit too, Jamie Dixon.
Oh well, Jamie and I were classmates.
I know.
Yeah, he was an undergrad and I was in the graduate school at the time, but at that time Dan Rogers Hall was the business school. Right. And so there was a lot of crossing over.
And you were one of the 35,000 who were at the TCU Texas game when he made the shot, right?
One of the 35,000.
I've kept count over the years of everybody who says they were there.
Yes.
It's 35,000 in a 7,000-seat arena.
Yes. Actually, my girlfriend, who's now Mrs. Hesselbrock, was there. And also Mrs. Hesselbrock, my mother.
Oh, were there as well?
Was there as well.
So there's three of the 35,000
That's
right
three
there.
of them, legitimate.
Yeah. Do you look back with fondness on the career? Do you say to yourself, you know what, I did good?
Yes. Yeah. It was a good career. I really never worked a day in my life is the way I looked at it. And I still hear from a lot of those athletes. I just celebrated a birthday and I probably got 50 to 60 texts or LinkedIn or whatever method they wanted, to say happy birthday, old man.
Yeah.
So
makes you feel good.
It does.
Maybe not quite as good as going into the Letterman's Hall of Fame.
That is pretty special given that lineup. I was over there about 3 weeks ago just looking at I've memorized them almost over the years, but my goodness.
Yeah.
Davey O'Brien.
Yeah.
Sammy, Bob Lilly. Wow.
Jack Hesselbrock.
Jack Hesselbrock.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yep.
That's Jack Hesselbrock. Look for a longer discussion with Jack in the near future. He's got some stories to tell, folks. We'll have it here on Frogs Today. Coming up next, he was Andy Dalton's running buddy.
We built a pyramid. At the top of that pyramid is to be number one, and we're going to do everything in our power to be the best team, and that means winning Saturday.
Jake Kirkpatrick, another new member of the TCU Hall of Fame, joins us next when our special continues on Frogs Today.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Our next guest here on our Hall of Fame special on Frogs Today, well, he was Andy Dalton's running buddy. In a way, he was in front of Andy the entire way. He was his center, Jake Kirkpatrick.
Our Frogs Today Hall of Fame special continues here now. The Letterman's Hall of Fame, of course, a huge event every year at TCU. And this year's class, well, I tell you, it's hard to beat this year's class, maybe the best ever. And one of those is the former starting center for the Horned Frogs, Jake Kirkpatrick, who joins us right now. Jake, man, I will tell you this, that of the 6 folks that are going to the Hall of Fame, you by far and away are in the best setting right now. Tell us where you are.
Yes, we are currently in New Mexico, outside of Taos in a small area called Cuesta. So it's a lot cooler here than it is in Texas, which is
good for
great.
you, man. And I do appreciate you taking some time to join us here today. Let's talk a little bit about your career and what leads up now to the Hall of Fame. Here you are coming out of Tyler. There were some when you were coming out of high school, correct me if I'm wrong, who questioned your size. Maybe didn't question your ability, but questioned your size. You get to TCU and you get to play for a guy in Eddie Williamson, the offensive line coach. What did that mean to your career?
Oh, it meant everything. I mean, first off, the fact that they gave me an opportunity, because I had no idea what I was doing. So the fact that they gave me a shot and brought me to TCU, they saw something that I didn't even see myself. So only Coach Williamson could do that, and only Coach Williamson could teach someone like me, and I owe him everything.
And then it ends up being an All-America career. Think about that, Jake. I mean, an All-America. Tell me what that means when Sports Illustrated sends you the flyer in the mail, the certificate that says, "Oh, by the way, you're an All-America."
I mean, it was just, I didn't believe it. Like a lot of the things that have happened, I just didn't believe it. Didn't even sink in. So, but it's obviously an individual recognition, like a lot of this stuff, but it takes a whole team. And the fact that we were at TCU at that moment of time with those coaches and those players just meant everything.
Talk about that team, Jake. I mean, that group of guys that you were around will still go down as maybe the ultimate TCU team. The way that you guys bonded, the way that you played on the field, the legacy that you left. Give us some sense of what that brotherhood was like for you.
Yeah, I mean, we get asked all the time, being the Rose Bowl winning team, what that was like and how great it was going undefeated. And honestly, I mean, you ask most of the guys, going undefeated was awesome. Rose Bowl was awesome, but doing it with that group was the best thing ever. I mean, we just had such a solid group of guys that came in and worked hard and pushed each other and held each other accountable, which I think helped lead to our success for sure.
Yeah, you think about the character of those men and what they were like on the field. And now you look at all of you later in life, in careers with families. It's amazing how that sort of paralleled the football, did it not? You had a bunch of guys who've been ultra successful.
Absolutely. I think the work ethic, I mean, that's just something you can't teach, right? You can have the best coaches teach the players to do it the right way, but to have the work ethic and the grind and the grit, I just try to bring that to post-football life, and I know a lot of the other guys do too.
We joked about the guy who always had his hand on your bottom, Andy Dalton. We've talked about it before. I mean, you had a pretty good partner there, didn't you, in that battery that led the way for the Horned Frogs?
Oh, man, just the greatest ever, on and off the field. I mean, you look at why we were so successful. I mean, there's a bunch of factors, but having a leader like Andy, everyone just looked to him. And he wasn't one of those guys that just said the right thing, but he lived it on and off the field. And I mean, that's carried all the way through the NFL too.
Jake, when you guys get together, when you and Andy get together, are y'all still partners? I mean, is that camaraderie still there?
Oh, it's like we've never left. honestly. And we'll go, 6-8 months without seeing each other, and then the second we're back, it's like we never left. He's just the best, the absolute best.
I remember that draft, that 2012 draft, and I love the NFL draft. I don't get hung up in it too much, but I remember, Jake, being disappointed that you weren't picked in the 6th or 7th round, which is the projection there. That's what, if you remember at the time, there was some saying maybe as high as a 5th, maybe in the 6th, for sure he's going to go in the 7th. And your name didn't get called. It was a light year for centers that year. What was that like emotionally for you?
It was definitely a roller coaster ride. It was a bummer to not get drafted. And at the time, it was painful. But I look back now and the way everything worked out and where we ended up, where my wife and I ended up today, I'm thankful for everything. I did get a shot in free agency, and if I would have played better, you'd stick around for a while. But I think when I moved on from football, it was definitely time.
Yeah, you got that shot with the Colts. You got to play behind one of the greats of all time, and Jeff Saturday, who was also coached by Eddie Williamson. So we had two of the Williamson boys hanging out. You talked about the fact you learned a lot from Jeff, who we see on television now, one of the great analysts out there.
Yeah, he's just Hall of Famer. I mean, on and off the field, you just watch how he goes about doing things, and that's carried on to his post-NFL career with what he's doing now, and he's just knocking that out of the park as well.
Jake, final thought here, to be named part of this class, to be able to go in with the likes of Andy Dalton and Jake Arrieta on the baseball side, give me some sense of what this means to you personally, to share this stage coming up here in a couple of weeks with folks that will look at you and say, hey, we went into the Hall of Fame together. What does that mean to you?
Huge honor. I mean, especially at a place like TCU. I just think it's just such a special place. And you look back, like we were talking a minute ago, I never could have drawn that up or even dreamed that I'd be in this position. And with those guys too that are going in, it's a huge honor. And when John called me and told me, I was obviously just speechless. But when he told me about Andy going in at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, I may have shed a tear. I was just so excited.
Well, I got $100 if you'll wear a camouflage tux that night, like you're
All
wearing
right,
today.
deal.
All right, deal. Jake Kirkpatrick, man, congratulations on the honor. We look forward to seeing you here in Fort Worth, back in Fort Worth in a couple of weeks, and it's a great tribute to a great career, both on and off the field. Thanks for the time here today from New Mexico.
Thanks so much. Appreciate y'all. Go Frogs.
Jake Kirkpatrick, Andy Dalton center, TCU Hall of Famer. I hope you've enjoyed the last 2 weeks of our Hall of Fame specials here on Frogs Today. I know I sure have. Rekindling old relationships with folks who've had a major impact here in Fort Worth and at TCU. Those 8 will soon see their portraits adorn the wall here at Schollmeyer Arena in the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to each of those. Thank you to our Frogs Today staff for putting this together. We hope you'll go to frogstoday.com for all the latest TCU news. And buckle up, folks, because next week, our daily Frogs practice report comes your way. You'll find it all at frogstoday.com. I'm Brian Estridge for Frogs Today.
Frogs Today is brought to you by the Flying Tea Club, supporting TCU student athletes, and by Richard's Rainwater. Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Frogs Today is a production of Roxo Media House.
Roxo Media House.